Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to Reaction Time. It's been 2 weeks. Too bad. We talked last week and decided we didn't quite have enough to talk about, regardless of all of the games. So now we have even more games to talk about, and even more champion picks to talk about, and so much fun. I am joined, as I almost always am, as long as I'm here, by Steven and Eric in whatever corners of your video that they are in. Hello, gentlemen. How are you tonight?
Hello.
Oh, I'm hyped.
You're in a good place. I think that's where we're gonna start. Would you like to hold your cap closer to the camera, Steven?
Yeah,
Do you want to flex it a
champions,
little bit?
baby, big old champions. Let's go.
So we'll start with the LCS lock-in tournament because that did happen. It is done. It is complete. Things went largely as expected in a lot of ways. I think the top four were about who we thought they would be. If we had picked the top four, we might have tried to get spicy, but I think TL, EG, C9, 100 Thieves would have been the four to pick going in. So in that aspect, it was interesting. TL winning the thing, I think, is interesting. So Steven, I'll start with you as the resident TL fan. What is your biggest takeaway from the lock-in tournament?
We definitely picked up Udyr, which was Udyr win game. Thank you, Big Jat Stan, pick ban face. Also utilizing Alfari just as like drawing pressure, doing well with pressure, clapping cheeks with pressure, and I don't know, just like playing through the wumbo. Like a Jensen on Oriana is always good. Tactical, like everybody just stepped up. Core with Thresh and Udyr was disgusting, and yeah, and that's just the finals. Like throughout the whole thing, just like Alfari just is a beast, worth that paycheck already.
Eric, what was your single biggest takeaway from the LCS lock-in tournament?
That Cloud9 is very scary. Watching how they started out this tournament looking terrible with Perks running it down on Yone to Perks picking Yone like in the playoff rounds and actually looking like a human being with hands on a keyboard was very impressive. The fact that they can do so much in the game with Fudge in top lane is pretty incredible. And so as he gets more comfortable and gets more experience, this team is going to be very scary. Everyone expected Cloud9 and TL to like take time to ramp up. After week one, everyone was hyping EG and 100T as winning the whole thing. And then when we got to the best of series, it didn't turn out that way. These teams amped up very quickly to look pretty incredible compared to their earlier performances.
Well, and to be fair to 100 Thieves, because that was where I was going to go, it looked like a little bit of inexperience going on to me in 100 Thieves' semifinal against C9, and that was it. They're not that young of a team. They all played in LCS last year, and like to call them a young team is a little bit of a disservice, but it's also not, because compared to some of the veteran status of the players on TL, on EG, on C9, the world's experience, the best of 5 experience, those players just don't have that to the same degree, and I think it showed a little bit in C9 getting the reverse sweep in the semifinals. Because I come out of this feeling really, really optimistic about 100 Thieves' ceiling. Like, I think that they can be really, really good with time.
Totally agree. The part that bothers me with that, or that I'm concerned about as a 100 Thieves fan, was that what it looked like in that series, just from an eye test, was mid-gap. And that was very scary, because DeMonte is the one with the most Worlds experience, and is the one with the most game time in a lot of ways. And so watching Perks and Cloud9 as a whole kind of run him over when he was on Twisted Fate was very concerning. But like, I totally get it for FBI, like still having definitely room to grow and add more. Who he like becoming like a first tier support in NA is like mind blowing. I wasn't expecting that, but I'm very glad. So it's like, it's great in some ways, but then I'm still concerned overall for how the team shapes into it with with like just seeing where the difference was and where it really sat between them and Cloud9.
Yep, for sure. And that's, I mean, the mid gap is why you pay the big money for Perks and Jensen. That's why you do it, because it gets the job done. My other biggest takeaway, and this might be a hot take, we'll see how hot you guys think this is. I know Steven will like this. Core is the best player in the league.
Yes.
Oh, that's not a lie. That's pretty straightforward.
That's a fact.
It's
I don't care how good Perks has been. I don't care about his Worlds experience. I don't care about G2's previous experience. Core is the best player in the league until somebody takes away from him.
Yeah.
Even him picking up Rel, which I don't think is the strongest character, but I think people want to play her because she's got a kit that wants to be good. He baited stuff out, did some clown things, and they still performed really well.
Well, and once we're going to talk about picks in a little bit after we talk some results. And Rel and Seraphine, I talked about those 2 weeks ago as really interesting picks, and it feels like people have figured them both out as far as how you can use them and what they go with in team compositions. Like the Rel performances we saw in the games we talked about 2 weeks ago are nothing like some of the performances we saw in both NA and EU on the champion in the last week or so. So it feels like people are starting to figure out how to use her kit, how does it fit with team comps, and like, I mean, the synergy of her ult and Orianna ult is just disgusting. It makes too much sense. Like you have to flash it. Good luck.
And another thing to remember with Core is that the champion that that from his Worlds win, I was the most impressed with was actually Tahm Kench. And so him on these melee supports that change up how you position or how you play in team fights, but then also have amazing gank assistance, are like the ones, or lane presence, I guess I would say in the case of Tahm Kench, are the ones that I really like seeing him play, and am always awe-inspired when he does these sick plays. And Rel is more so that than like some of the more normal or meta supports in some ways. Like even though Alistair and Leona have these like go in play patterns, the way Rel positions and has to use abilities to make it happen is much more flashy. And when you see him make it happen, it's incredible.
Yep, completely agree. So congrats to TL on getting the win. I thought that all four teams performed very well. I'm sad that EG kind of shit the bed in their semifinal. That was disappointing for me as an EG fan, but I feel like they also might need a little bit of time to get the recipe right, and they got beat by a better team. Like, that's pretty clear at this point.
You got the coin flip, Jizuka.
He
He's
did.
great when he's great, and sometimes he's not. And you have to live with it. And like his Echo into a Azir matchup, which is his bread and butter, that's what got him banked by Vitality when he was under Yamada Cannon, is just like abusing that lane matchup, and you saw him abuse that lane matchup. And so he's so much fun to watch. I love every game the guy is in. That's why I picked him up on my fantasy roster, because I love watching him play these abusable mid matchups. And whenever they pick him on something that's not Echo or Rise, I'm going to just turn off my TV and move away.
Some might say that picking a coin flip player in fantasy is a bad decision, but I respect your choices and intend to beat you. We might close this episode with a little talk through our Draft Buff Fantasy League that we had our draft for this week, because I think we all had some priorities that we got what we wanted. So it'll be interesting to hear some justifications for that from each of us. Let's talk about early season EU. Let me look up some standings real quick. We are through 5 games, I think, for all the teams in EU. Yep, 5 games after this week.
First week was a super week, and then second week was 2 games.
And when I posited an episode idea last week, it was when Misfits were the most interesting, I guess, farthest away from where we expected them to be, and then they got dunked on this week, so they're a little bit less interesting. But I still think, like, I want to start there. They're 2-3 as it stands, only above Astralis and Vitality in the table. But I think that their rookie players have shown the most promise of any of these like bottom tier teams that are playing less known, less brand name players in the league. I have not watched enough of the broadcast to know how to pronounce their players' names. Their
Vethio?
top laner, is it Hyrit
Hear It, yeah,
or Hirit?
Hear
Hirit,
It's really good.
was he even? He wasn't even originally supposed to be the starter for this team. It was Aggressivu, and Hirit has been one of the more impressive players based on stat line and game performance. I would say. Eric, what have you thought about Misfits so far?
I think that they've looked great. Razork looks unlocked, and I wasn't expecting it this meta. I thought, he's a jungle echo one trick. That's his bread and, well, I should stop saying bread and butter this episode, but I'll only say it when it regards to people who one trick echo. But like in this case, Echo is his one trick champion, and he had an Echo game, and he looked great on Echo. He got to play Talia. He looked great on Talia. And so like when he gets these kind of mage jungle champions, he's looked fantastic. He's great at map pressure. He's also gotten to play Pantheon. To be fair, Misfits have been allowed to play more OP junglers than like any other team in any league. Like if you look at the champions that Razork's been allowed to play, he's played Talia, he's played Echo, which is his big champion, he's played Olaf, he's played Pantheon, and he's played Lilia. And so the Lilia game is more shady, but the other four are all like the S tier jungle picks plus his one trick, which is pretty incredible. And he's looked good too. I've also been impressed with Vethio. Whenever I look at these rosters, I expect that these like low experience players from EU Masters, especially these same org ones, to take more growing time or to have problems with pressure or understanding where to be on the map for objectives or just like getting into bad situations in lane. I mean, Vethio hasn't looked terrible. He's actually looked pretty good overall. And so it's been good to see them succeed with these players in this way, but definitely their top side has been incredible, which gives them time for Kabi and Vander to come online and just like hard carry games.
I agree. Steven, what have you thought about Misfits thus far?
I have not thought about Misfits.
How dare you not think about
Misfits?
I
can't think about their bounty hunter rabbit.
I love their bounty hunter rabbit. You're a hater.
I'm a big hater.
That's great branding. I love that.
It's
really
the most sporty of the brands for sure.
So I really love all the 2 and 3 teams in EU, which is where it's really fascinating. Like EU is the league where I care the most about the middle of the pack teams right now, where I'm really excited about them because we looked at Misfits. SK is also really fascinating. Tinks has been playing very well in the jungle, which is great. It's wonderful that he's gotten stage time. Treats, who came over from TSM Academy, has looked phenomenal in EU. Like, looks like he should have been starting in LEC the entire time. The rest of the roster definitely has growing pains, but has promise. And so it's really cool to see them in this place. Excel also is fascinating, less because of the players and more because they're playing top Ivern and top Lulu exclusively. They're just shoving cries onto top Moonstaff champions and hoping it lets them hard carry games with Patrick, and it's won them 2 games out of 5, which is incredible because it's tragic. Don't watch those games unless you like are a glutton for punishment like I am, because they lose early game every time terribly, and then it doesn't matter because eventually they've got an ADC that's either a Graves in the case of when it's in jungle or an actual ADC that then they're popping like double Moonstaff heals onto and just like hoping and praying that they plow through the entire enemy team and it works. And oh man, I actually love it. I love it. It's just the suffering present in these games reminds me of solo queue. It's like I'm going into this game, I'm winning my lane, and then all of a sudden we hit dragon fights and my team just falls completely apart. And that's what it feels like when Excel is winning for the enemy team. Is like, guys, you were up 30 CS, what's happening? And the answer is top Ivern. Top Ivern is what's happening. Get used to Daisy. And I love it.
It is impressive that Excel has won. It's a small sample size, but Excel has the second worst gold differential per minute in the league, the second worst KDA in the league, and they're only one game up on Vitality and Astralis, but they don't look like it.
It's super early too.
It's again small sample size, but I wanted to look at the at 15 stats and see how they looked with that beautiful.
It's very bad. Game. Their by 15 is tragic. It is so terrible.
I'm still blown away that like Rogue and Mad Lions are in the upper parts of this. Like part of me at the end of last year was like, oh, that they did it. That was the thing they did. That was the end of that. They're gonna fall apart coming in. Nope.
They're legit.
Yep. That's like new dynasties coming in fast. G2 and Fnatic better figure it out if they want to keep that monotony over the banners.
To be fair to G2, like they're not
doing
far
bad.
behind.
No, for sure, but still,
they've had one throw. My like call for EU right now is that Mad Lions is going to fall pretty drastically here in the near future as these teams in the middle of the pack like figure out the meta. Fnatic, Misfits, and SK, in my opinion, have all had a couple of really tragic pick bans that have cost them terribly in this meta, especially Fnatic. And so, like, as they figure things out, I think these teams have incredibly high ceilings that they haven't hit yet. Whereas, even though Mad is a young team, outside of Carzzy, I feel that some of them are already playing pretty near ceiling or well. Like, Armut's looked very good, but I don't think they're going to get much better this season, which is very dangerous.
Here's your follow-up. If we say Mad's going to fall off, how much do you trust the top three to stay some mixture of Rogue, G2, and Schalke for the rest?
Very much. Very much. Like, Schalke has also had some tragic pick bans, but they've managed to pull out of them in ways that some of these other teams haven't, just because of how mechanically skilled they are and how much chip they have in this roster. Like, Gilius at the helm plus Abba plus Broken Blade is a more experienced quality roster than these middle of the pack teams are fielding in some ways. So I expect them to be able to out macro or out micro, not necessarily like out mechanic. If you go to Cadrill's like breakdown of the 3 M's from the broadcast, a lot of these teams, and they looked very good when they looked good, and their losses I thought were just tragic.
It seems like the key for them is Broken Blade betting in, like, because he's been the most like punishable player they've had thus far, and he looked really good in their most recent game. So like it looks like there might be a little bit of a finding his personal like top lane meta and seeing what fits him the best, and just getting used to playing in the LEC instead of in the LCS or the TCL where he's been from before. So it's if he rounds into form, I think they're going to be in really good shape at the top of the table. But like, I think they're going to be a solid third, and I think Rogue G2 is going to be fascinating. That game is in week 4, which is in. We're recording this on Wednesday night, February 3rd right now, so it's in like a week and a half, and that's going to be just a massive game. I think Rogue have a chance to win it, and that's pretty nuts because they've looked that good, and they won the regular season last split. They know how to win these games.
Odo, the legacy top laner, shows up yet again, absolutely bodies these kids who are like, you know, getting close to 10 years younger than him now, and shows them what for. And it's incredible. He's looked phenomenal this split, and which is great because it's not necessarily been what I would traditionally consider an Odo meta. He's been playing some Aatrox and looked great on it, so like that does fit into more of his wheelhouse of experience. But the fact that he looks good on Renekton, he looks good on Aatrox, he's been playing these champs and like winning lane well, even with Inspired doing other stuff on the map, is pretty incredible, and I'm very pumped for this team.
Before we get too far away from it, if we're gonna give Broken Blade a pass on like figuring out what he's doing on the team as a skill ceiling, that pass gets put on Armut as well. Like, You can't give those. It's the same criteria, same foundation we're building on. Like someone coming over, playing on a whole new battlefield, like getting a feel for everything, and filling some shoes. Like he wants to show up here just as like a like he everything was gone and he got to pick up and do this. So like that's why I'm like I'm not gonna like write off Mad Lions as peaking
Well,
here.
and it's the thing with NA that is going to be interesting to watch how much different the regular season feels from what we saw in Lock-In, particularly for the 6 teams that didn't progress at all into top 4, because like it. Jose Dioto is another one that like he's played at Worlds once, but never really played outside of a minor region before, and I think that FlyQuest has potential to figure some stuff out, but like the tournament setting, as like the quick tournament setting, was not going to be the best thing for these teams that are just figuring it out. Same for like an Immortals team that's trying to figure out what combination of young and less experienced players to run through. Like the tournament that NA started with isn't going to be as good for those teams that are figuring it out. Where in the LEC, you've got like Fnatic. Fnatic would have been like out of an EU equivalent of a lock-in already, but I feel like we've got a lot more to see from them as they develop. Same with like pick any of the other 2 and 3 teams that Eric talked about already. Like the NA teams, I think we're gonna get to see a lot more of what the middle of the table looks like as soon as the regular season starts this weekend.
Did LEC stick with the 2 splits? Correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
NA's the only one doing the single season thing.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting to see how that plays.
I think it's already paying off as far as like growth, like forced growth, because like
Tournaments are good for viewership. Finals are good for viewership. It's an inarguable fact.
yeah. Well, just like a Cloud9, just from improvement and like being forced into like pressure forms diamond situation, like even improving in the best of 5 with TL, like they had it together, and that 5th game was what it was, but there was the reverse sweep coming in quick, and it's just like, oh well, they figured it out, and I don't think they would have done that over the course of 5 games in the regular season, where they could have they improved over 5 games in one sitting.
So are we going to NA next then? Is that our plan? Is talking lock-in tournament?
We did talk the top 4 already. Would you like to talk about the other 6 teams that are trash?
Well, I just want to. Okay, the one thing I'll say about the other 6 teams is that Jose Dioto coming in like did wonders for that FlyQuest squad. When all these rosters were playing these academy squads because their imports aren't in the country yet because of various reasons, it was incredible to see how much of a difference it made, both when Jose Dioto and then later Santorin showing up to their teams did. Like, going to these actual starting rosters made a world of difference in these squads. And so I would not be surprised if Immortals and I think just Immortals, actually. Just Immortals from the bottom 6, when their actual roster shows up, look completely different from what they've already showed. And that'll be a great plus, is to see like an actual performing roster.
I would say the same thing about FlyQuest. I'm looking at the schedule for this weekend right now. FlyQuest have TSM, EG, TL week 1.
Tough week.
Like,
wow.
It's like with them, it's like if they'd had like some more, like I think TSM's a winnable matchup for them. I think that's very friendly. I have concerns about them just coming out 1-2-0-3 and not feeling great about where they are, even if like they're probably fine long run. It's just one of those things, like how reactive are these teams going to be in a longer season to try things, to mess with things, since they've already in some ways been forced to use backup players, use players out of academy. How willing are teams going to be to chop and change after 1 week, 2 weeks of NA? There we go. Let's touch on the LPL and LCK real quick. The LCK, the top is not a surprise for Dom 1 to be at the top at 5-1. The team that is a little bit more of surprise is the completely it's Pioshik and rookies Dragon X roster that is sitting at 5-2 and has been taking names. And I am so impressed by what they've done. Pioshik, for the record, was the first person to pick the Udyr pick that has now become a complete staple of the worldwide meta. He was the first one to bring it out, and it was in a win, I think, over. I want to say it was over T1 if I remember right, but it's been they've been a fascinating team to keep an eye on because I expected nothing from them this season. Like they were not even in consideration for what I thought would be like top 3, top 4, and they have looked every part of it. I'm interested to see if they can sustain it through the rest of the season. But Steven, I know you said you watched at least a little bit of some Pioshik highlights. What did you think of his play?
I thought it was great. I think he being whoever innovated with him or for him, or if he did it himself, I want to give it proper credit because like the Udyr pickup that's the fastest I've seen an off meta pick spread as far as
just go everywhere.
Yeah, like within I think the same week. So it was impressive to see that. I do want to say that I think DRX has done the best drafts around the Udyr pick, and that was very interesting to see because it was where I first, because I don't think North America did this as well with drafting long range engage on top of the Udyr to keep up with him, because I don't the Rakan Kai'Sa Udyr is very gross and very disgusting, and I don't think we've seen the Rakan really picked up, at least in North America, and used that way. I think they're more lenient towards the Thresh and the tanks, but just watching them just like send a very fast bear into the myth, but then everyone else was able to follow up and not using like the Jhin kind of follow up, but everybody was in those fights. Kai'Sa was placing correctly, and the top laner Kingen.
Yep. Kingen.
Wow, he's I wouldn't have known he was a rookie until you said something, because like he's very impressive on like either
he
being
played
there
a little last year, I want to say, but not much.
Like he's either there in the fights, getting on backline and doing his top lane BS that no one likes on the receiving end, or drawing people away in a split push, like 3 people, not like 1 or 2 people, like 3 or 4 people while they do an objective, and that allows for the Udyr, because I noticed that Pioshik really focused on ganking top lane to get that rolling, and it wasn't necessarily successful in at least one of the games that I was watching, and it all changed once you got to team fights because of the Rakan Kai'Sa collapse with the Irelia Udyr. Like, it was gross, and those team compositions and that like instant go made the Udyr look that much better and that much more impressive than what I've seen in NA.
Eric, LCK thoughts. What do you have for me?
So it looks like it's shaping up better than when I last watched it. I mean, I was really nervous about LCK because with franchising, a lot of the bottom of the pack teams really were scraping the bottom of the barrel, and the top teams got like S tier talent. And so it was very interesting to see how it played out with Genji, DRX, SKT, who are falling apart. But like picking up a lot of the big talent, and then the rest of the teams trying to figure it out. And so I've been kind of it's interesting to see like the fact that T1's falling, but that KT is rising and Afrika's holding steady is pretty cool to me, because
and it's kind of like LCK. You've got this giant middle of the table here from Hanwha down to T1, all 4-2, 4-3, or 3-4.
Yeah. So it's interesting to me. I think it's really sad to see Chovy playing on yet another mediocre roster, because like he is in such ELO hell on these games, and that's really tragic. I really want to see him be able to win
Well, and
something.
the games they've won, like I forget which game it was last week, but it was one of the hardest mid carries that we've seen in recent memory from Chovy across a series.
Yeah. On the bright side, Genji kept a lot of their roster, and they still do the exact same stuff where they just like hard win through bot lane and then snowball drastically. And so still seeing them succeed that way when they kept that roster is very satisfying.
And T1, like for if you're watching this and haven't watched any LCK, T1's problem has been that they absolutely cannot settle on a starting five. Kana, who was their big breakthrough rookie top laner last year, has looked awful. Faker hasn't been playing. They've been choosing to play closer over him, which continues to look really dumb when Faker actually plays, as in their last series, in which Faker playing in, I think, his 600th career game in the LCK, still the most all-time, as it is likely to be for a while. They looked good and won when they played Faker. It doesn't seem that complicated to me. He's still the greatest player of all time.
A part of what's so fantastic about Faker is how little you need to actually give him. So like people kept giving him kind of flack during like the Bengi era of like I have my jungler camping for me to like win me the lane and then we win the game. But like when you've looked at Faker since then, he's played on these rosters and actually has like some of the lowest gold shares out of mid lane in the entire LCK, and then continues to put out like overemphasized damage shares when his team actually gets into team fights, and his positioning and mechanics are absurd. So like to me, where you would start closer over Faker in this roster is if you really want to win mid lane. But if you're just okay with Faker like doing fine, eating pressure, putting more gold onto Gumayusi or onto Kana who like need it, then great, because I think both of those players are better carries than some of the ones that Faker has supported in his tenure. Looking at Bang. And so like seeing either one of them like move these games forward is incredible. And I am totally cool with that version of SKT if like that's the approach they want to go. But I agree on the figure out your starting five mantra, because the talent they have on this 9-person roster is incredible and they should be able to win more.
Are they able to rotate players in the best of threes, or
Yes. Okay. It's often been one of the strategical elements of the LCK that either goes well or goes poorly, because like I remember it was it Afrika last year or 2 years ago that they played Dread, who has looked good recently but didn't at that time, for game 1 and then lost game 1 and then subbed in Spirit and won their games. Like I get the theory behind not playing your best players to start with sometimes, but I think win the series. Like if you're not winning the series, you need to fix something.
Yeah.
Well, like, and a part of the thing with like the sub and Spirit for Dread thing, right, is that Spirit watches game 1 and sees the enemy jungler's pathing, and so then he knows what the enemy jungler is going to do. So he comes in game 2 and uses his big brain, like shoves his hypothetical glasses up his nose, and then just like completely outplays them on like Jungle Annie or whatever nonsense he's up to that way.
I miss watching Spirit so much.
And,
He's my favorite.
And like, so that makes more sense. Whereas if you're like trading out mid laners, that's less impactful to the greater map, and it's like you get less out of knowing about how the opponent does stuff, especially since like champion picks matter much more for understanding how your opponent is going to approach the game in the early game in lanes than it does in jungle, because like the champion picks shape so much more about how you interact. In the jungle, it's like, okay, I know he's going to probably start bot side, and I know even more if we have wards. I know what his clear path is going to look like, and if he's going to go for the gank or go for crab. And with that knowledge, I can totally abuse how this is going to work out. I can get early Dragon, I can get Matt Prio for my team, and I can play to our win conditions. With mid laner, it's like, okay, I know he's going to try and all-in me level 1 on LeBlanc. Oh, wait, they picked Orianna. And then you feel stupid. And, like, I don't know how to make that same transition matter for roles that aren't either jungle or potentially support, as far as, like this is what you get by watching game 1.
And
Yep.
I think it boils down to you have to have specialists. Like they're players that are specializing in either like matchups or in champion play style, as far as like you got your assassin player, your utility mage player, or whatever. And then that gives you an edge when you know what the enemy team is going to be playing. So I crave that amount of like 3D chess in League that I don't think we will ever get until like all the leagues go into this best of threes that the LCK is pulling, and that might be a pipe dream that will never come true. But I want that level of like where you have your specialist player like come in and either play what you know they're going to specialize in or change it up to intentionally like that. Then we really start like stacking on like what you can do with these deeper rosters.
Speaking of leagues that play best of 3, it's time for Eric to talk about the LPL.
I can't believe that EDG looks this good. I guess a part of it's that Viper is incredible. So, like, that's the big thing that I've seen
He's really
in the
good.
LPL with this split, is that the former Griffin players who are now in China are fantastic, each and every one, and they are carrying their teams. Because, like, you have to remember that the core of this EDG roster with Scout and Mako, like Scout and Mako have been on EDG for ages, and they were consistently middle of the pack with whatever pieces they'd put around them, including iBoy, including some of these other players. And now here they have a rookie jungler and Zhizhe, and then they have like Viper and Flandre. And Viper Flandre appears to be this winning makeup. And I gotta credit Viper on a lot of this because their team fighting's incredible, and it's giving them a win condition, which has always been the problem with Flandre rosters, is Flandre picks his nonsense top lane or gets a minuscule advantage, and then his team can't close from that. Or how many resources he requires doesn't let them transition. But this roster really seems to get it and has been doing phenomenal, and that's pretty. So I'm hyped for EDG. I love seeing Flandre winning games.
It's weird. It's nice, but it's weird.
It's really weird. They need some top Nunu. I think top Nunu is what will like really put me back in Snake mindset when I watch this team play.
The rest of the top 5 in the LPL is Royal at 5-1, FPX at 5-1, and Team WE and Billy Billy both at 5-2. Eric, which one of those 4 teams has impressed you the most?
World Elite purely from team fighting. It's absolutely incredible. Like it's just team fights. It's not early game necessarily. It's not like player individual mechanics. It's the fact that they out team fight literally everyone. You get into a 5v5 on Dragon and they will win it. Guaranteed. It doesn't matter what the comp is. It doesn't matter what the gold advantage is. They just beat you in like a face up 5v5. That's how they took out LNG with Tarzan, is they just like beat them in team fights straight up. And it's incredible watching them do this repeatedly, because like this is another team of like these no names essentially who have come together and are just like stomping the table. And it's incredible. They've had one of the hardest early parts of the split too, like where they've played against LNG who look strong. They've played against FPX. They've played against these rosters who should be good and have beaten them. And that's really fascinating, with like considering they've had less dud games than some of these teams who have played against, Rare Atom as like or Rogue Warrior as their best team that they've played against.
Please respect 3-3 Rare Atom.
You're disrespecting.
The last Rare Atom series I watched, they absolutely beat the crap out of somebody.
LPL is hard because there's so many
games. The problem is, I think if I recall correctly, it was whatever Rogue Warriors is trying to do with this. We're definitely not AHQ, but we are AHQ, and that's not good enough for the LPL. I'm sorry.
No, like it's so tilting because like Rogue Warrior has Ziv and Haru, who look good, but it's like they're their best players, and it's like Ziv cannot be your best player. It is not his history. It is not what you should be using an import slot for in a roster. If you want Ziv on your roster, you have to have a stud ADC who can team fight well, who you can funnel gold into, so that Ziv can malfight all the enemy team and win you games. That is how this works. Instead, it's like Ziv and Haru are their best players. Mid loses lane, bot loses lane. What's the point? And it looks bad. It looks very bad. And when they win games, like, it's really cool because you get to see Haru like have good jungle mechanics, have good macro because he does. But like it's really hard to see them doing well when like this is how they have to allocate resources on the map and who their players are. Especially considering the other teams with young players have looked phenomenal. Like if we look at like World Elite, who we just talked about.
So I'm going to call you on this because I think it's hilarious given how the structure of the discussion. Did you know that Rare Atom 2-0 WE happened yesterday?
No, I did not know that happened. Seriously?
Seriously.
That's fascinating. All right, so World Elite finally got wrecked, I guess.
Yep.
All right, so they lost to them.
I'm looking at the scores. I didn't know that happened, but that's really funny in hindsight.
That is really funny. Let me take a look at this. Oh, wow, and playing that same roster. Wow. Fascinating. Okay. I stand somewhat corrected.
Correct.
That's crazy.
I still believe your rankings in the long run. I don't trust this Rare Atom team, but I think they're hilarious. They're kind of fun.
Wow, it looks like Fofo just like won lane really hard a couple of times. So yeah. That's crazy to me. The RNG WE series is fascinating. Xiaohu is like Xiaohu's resident sleeper because it like unlocks this team. Like RNG has played more with mages top lane than other teams that I've seen worldwide.
If he played Syndra top, he played Syndra top, didn't he?
He played Syndra top. And as one of them, I think he's also played Ryze top lane one of these times.
Which
and,
that's
like,
fine. Ryze top's been meta. Syndra top has never been a thing. Stop.
Yeah, like they also can flex Lucian top lane, kind of like the Huni things, only they have somebody who actually plays it. It's kind of nuts, like how much it unlocks this roster, and that's a part of why I'm still prepped to see how much teams in other leagues can experiment with this meta, because I think it's still wide open. There's a ton of crazy stuff that teams haven't tried out yet that could be good into non-stone, moonstone, whatever nonsense, top Ivern, that people are going to try and pull off. Because like Lucian into Ivern is a terrible matchup top lane. I'm just gonna throw that out here right now. You don't want to be the Ivern in that matchup. And so like there's tons of ways that this meta can be exposed still that they're still experimenting with. And RNG get to be on the forefront of that because of the Xiaohu lane swap into top lane. And so they look pretty good. I'm very excited that the fact that these young or like transitioning LPL rosters are so strong compared to like the ones who were at Worlds dumpstering worldwide teams. Like top is middle of the pack, Suning is middle of the pack.
LGD is 0-5.
LGD is 0-5 with a completely rookie roster.
They look awful.
They look really bad. And then but like, you know, IG is like kind of middle of the pack still. Like the fact that these rosters who were like dominating the league before are middle of the table right now is nuts as far as like what it says about what the skill level of the league is at and where like they'll be at when we get to MSI this year.
My last point is, now that you brought up the 3-3 teams, which we've talked a lot about Rare Atom, more than I intended to, but there's a little bit of the Derp Hydra meme to be found here in the 3-3 teams, in that Suning, World's finalist, JDG won LPL last spring, IG, former world champion, and Rare Atom.
3-3. And like a part of it, like, and you would want to say that it has to do with like strength of schedule to some extent. However, like Rare Atom beating World Elite, who is the team that has been beating the top of the table, like who you'd think would be top of the table teams, is makes it so who knows, you know, it's LPL, baby. Like we're going to team fight at Dragon 1 no matter what. We're going to team fight at Rift Herald no matter what. We're going to fight. And it's really exciting to see that, because it also shows you how little, I guess I should say, gold leads matter in this meta. And that teams aren't actually abusing fighting over objectives enough with where things could stand. And the best example like I've seen from that is the nonsense Excel stuff, where it's like they can completely secede early game and then still like win because of the strength of Moonstone and these comps. And like what that means is that like teams are really focused in on first item power spike on Mythic. Like I'm getting my Gale Force and I'm OP, or I'm getting my Ludens and I'm OP, or I'm getting my whatever item and I am ready to 1v9. And you get it because the mythics are super strong. But it turns out that like comps still matter, and that it turns out that like winning early game on Olaf makes it really hard to see the fact that there's plenty of things you can do.
I'll highlight a couple games out of the LPL schedule coming up this week, because there's a couple of bangers. Suning EDG on Friday morning at 5 a.m. Central Time, and FPX Top and JDG WE both on Saturday morning, early in the morning Central Time. Some banger series. Also, 2 weeks ago, Eric talked trash about my beloved Thunder Talk Gaming, who will probably move to 3-4 after beating LGD, who are worse than they are this week. Not the worst team in the league.
No, but it's close. Like, bottom three are trash.
They've won 2 straight. They've won 2 straight. They're fine. All right, part 2. We're going to talk about champions and how they went. So we're going to try and go a little faster than we usually do through this. And we're going to do this through the eyes of the 11.3 patch that I think hit live today. And therefore, I assume won't hit pro play for another week and a half, at least in NA and EU, but is still going to be very relevant to what the pro game is looking like. So, looking at Game of Legends, using the data from the top 4 leagues so far, champions that are being nerfed in this patch: Olaf, Pantheon, Taliyah. It's almost like they were too good. Taliyah is my favorite one from this. If you sort by win rate, Taliyah has been picked 42 times and is 33-9 in pro play for a casual 79% win rate out of the jungle. That's bonkers. So, will you miss the era of Olaf, Pantheon, and Taliyah in the jungle, and was it enough to get rid of them?
I can go first. I think Olaf is going to stay around even with nerfs, just because he's a good alternative to Udyr. It's kind of fundamentally the same play style. It doesn't have the bear slap sound effect when you play him, but like very aggressive clears, can get in 1v1, is viable to just run down people. So he might stick around. I don't think Taliyah was... I don't like these jungle nerfs. I think that, like, if you want the jungle pool to open up, it's so much easier to bring other characters up to line rather than just beating down what I'm almost thinking are flavors. Just depend on how strong other things are. Because is Udyr, Olaf, Graves really that strong without like the Ivern stuff and like the utility mages mid? Maybe not. Is Taliyah as good without some kind of lane assistance as far as stun or CC, and like global proximity to other people? Pantheon maybe probably deserves the nerf, but like, come on, leave that guy alone. Like, every time he's either like really overpowered or just bad, and so just like bring up other characters to play well and force people to build comps around different things and find answers. Don't just nerf the top tier.
We should also know that while Udyr didn't merit enough picks, he was only 25% pick ban presence across the split so far in the top 4 leagues. He is also receiving a nerf to his clear speed in this patch, so he might also drop a little bit out of the priority area.
It's mainly at later levels though, which is kind of bizarre with Phoenix stands. So like the more you
Yeah, it's nothing at
more,
level 1. Yep.
yeah. So like it's I don't know how much that'll actually shape that. The bigger thing to me is the Gore Drinker nerf, where it's
Yes.
actually like nerfing the heal percentage on Gore Drinker is a big deal as far as like the Olaf, or the Aatrox or the Renekton is in what's going on, more than even some of the champion stuff. It's fascinating to me that they nerfed Talia, but then they buffed all the mage items. So in mid game, like Talia could be just as strong or stronger, but they did nerf clear speed. And so like clear speed is always the thing that's going to impact pro play the most when it comes to these things.
It's why Nidalee is still kind of in the meta.
Yeah.
She clears so fast.
The other thing that like I really care about with this is that all right, so they changed up marksman items. The problem with changing up marksman items is that I think that Gale Force is too good, and so it'll always be the option at pro play level for ADCs in like most circumstances, because like getting the extra dash matters so much when blowing your flash matters so much at pro level compared to solo queue or low. Like anything below challenger, we don't care as much if like, if you call a flash timing, because the jungler's not going to show up anyway. Steven's hard farming. He's going to gank top lane before he gets there anyway. Don't worry about it. Like, why even ping it? It doesn't matter. But at pro level, like when you call that, mid laner's flash is down, you blew it, at this point in time, the enemy team knows exactly when it's going to come back up. The support's going to gank in addition to the jungler, and you're going to lose. And it's much more clear cut how to punish these discrepancies. And so like Gale Force and having that extra like dash just matters so much more at the highest level than it will ever in solo queue.
And like the buff was to shield bow. There was a buff to shield bow, a change to PD, and a buff to Lord Dominic's regards. And shield bow already is in this place where it gets built by Samira, Yasuo, and Yone.
Yep.
At the highest level. And I don't really think that's going to change unless somehow Kog'Maw makes his way into the meta. Because and even then, like, you do it for the protection, and you still might be better off with a Gale Force to get out of the way of all the things trying to jump on you when you're Kog'Maw.
Like, dodging stuff at pro level matters more than a 300-point shield. It just does. And so, like, I don't think buffing it will make a difference.
I do want to touch back on clear speed.
Yeah.
There is a buff to AP Shyvana centered around clear speed, so that's gonna be fucking obnoxious when fireballs are coming. I wanted to see it in pro play. I want to see the AP dumpster fire nuke fireballs coming out of the shadows. But that also opens up for like Hecarim and Rek'Sai to come back into play as well, because
and Hecarim's already sitting around the fringe. 22 picks, 7 and 15, so not a very successful record. But when you have, let's see, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 junglers that have 50 or more picks across pro play at this point. Olaf, Pantheon, Talia, Nidalee, Graves, Lilia, and Udyr. You get nerfs on 4 of those, and nerfs on Olaf and Pantheon's items. Is Nidalee, Graves, Lilia the pool, or
it really just
is something like the Shyvana or the
next
Hecarim
follow-up?
Or
it really just
something
depends
like
on
the Shyvana
how
or
the
the
next
Hecarim
follow-ups come through, because I think jungle is at its best when you're opting into your path, but everybody has the same opportunity. If you're getting all the junglers kind of boosted towards clear speed, they balance out with their gank tools, like where Udyr is much better clearing than Hecarim. Hecarim has the better ganking tools and teamfight tools. So if you're going to bring Udyr down a little bit and leave Hecarim there, they're fine. I still don't like Lilia. I think Nidalee is already in that balanced point where she might be the right pick in certain situations. I think you can just pick her now into whatever and do her job. But we need to see like the top tier clearing junglers pulled down, which they're starting to do, as well as bringing up the better ganker team fighter junglers with some clear speed options. So they're barely compromising on like 1 or 2 camp, not 6 or 7 camps.
The champion that I found notable is a lot of the top priority picks based on pick presence are junglers. Like Olaf and Pantheon are 2 and 3 in pick presence across the top 4 leagues. That makes sense. They got nerfed. Okay, cool. There's one champion that has an even higher presence than Olaf and Pantheon in pro play right now, and it didn't get touched. I'm talking about Kai'Sa, who has a 95% presence in pro play across the opening of the LCK, LCS, LEC, and LPL. And still, across 173 picks, has a 57% win rate, 98 and 75. The only other AD with a significant pick rate and a win percentage above 50% is Xayah with 35 and 29, 55%.
For Valentine's Day, so it checks.
Eric, what do you think about the ADC pool?
I mean, what it really boils down to, right, is that Kai'Sa plays well with these pick force comps, right, where you land a CC ability in at long range and then you follow up. So you just force fights, and then that's very strong. It allows you to take advantage of your super powerful ADC items in fights, even if you don't like have to position well to kick it off, which some of these other champions do. I don't know how they fix this, because like a part of why Kai'Sa is so good isn't just Kai'Sa, it's the comp, where it's like, I'm going to pick Talia, and I'm going to ult in and force this fight in their like red side jungle, and then my Kai'Sa is going to ult in, and my Leona's going to chuck down a solar beam on top of us, and then we're going to wombo and win. Damage feels super high right now, which is a part of where this gets really nuts, is that like being able to ult in, press your buttons, and blow somebody up is very good in how these fights play out. So I don't know if nerfing Kai'Sa is the right answer, but it sure feels like it watching it win so much.
In the patch, no ADCs were touched, as we note, with no Kai'Sa nerf. Ezreal and Jinx both received buffs, Jinx receiving a pretty decent adjustment to her early game and how some of her abilities function. Do you think either of them stand a chance to break into pro play?
Ezreal's gotten some play in like Academy or other regions and stuff, and it just looks bad. And it's not necessarily because his kit is bad or his item path is bad. It's that like the burst damage isn't there, because with Ezreal you don't want to buy the OP ADC items. You want to buy Divine Sunder or Trin Force, which isn't the same. And like so I don't know how to like them buffing Ezreal makes sense to me, because like a lot of the champions that fit into his space are the most impacted by the item rework. Buffing Jinx is interesting. I don't know what it adds from a pro perspective. It's definitely better from like, you know, a casual perspective. So maybe you'll play ADC for me again, and I don't have to
as a Jinx one trick. I am in favor of these changes. The problem from the pro perspective that I've seen put out there is that she basically does Aphelios' job, but worse as things stand. Do you agree with that, Steven?
Jinx is too stationary, especially when you have things like Udyr, big wombo combos. Like, she's going to get caught out, where Aphelios can still press R and 200 years of experience come flying out of his body to trash a team. Jinx doesn't have that, especially if she's caught. She has even less tools to do anything with. The only way she's getting her big, obnoxious damage off is if she can sit in a fight for a while, get rockets flying, or just shoot a rocket across map on a fleeing team. Like, she is at her worst when they are not in, like when that team is not initiating the fight.
The thing that I find interesting about the Jinx changes as they relate to this meta currently, what Jinx needs to really have a fight go off in her favor is the one reset, the one pick to get her passive going, to get that extra attack speed to up that burst damage. And as Eric pointed out, there's a lot in this meta built around finding that pick, finding that first assist. And if you, as they say, get excited, I think there's something there. The problem is you would really have to build a team comp around her to support her and get that disengage going. Conveniently, Gragas is really good at that and is a peak meta top laner right now. And she's a champion that Gale Force does really help in terms of survivability. Because
Kaisa, Aphelios, Jin, like those would all have to be off the table.
Yep.
And then I would still go Ezreal, Sivir, Caitlyn before I would get to Jinx.
Hold on now, Reckless.
Am I wrong?
Whoa.
you didn't even say Senna. I would have said Senna before Caitlyn.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
Senna
even further down.
Senna's disgusting. They need to do something about it. I can't believe they haven't touched on it yet. But like with Sivir though, like Sivir and Xayah are in the meta because they can like self peel from these all-in engage comps, right? So like the Kaisa ults in, and then you press R as Xayah, and then you've completely taken away their advantage from like, you know, Pantheon ult, Gragas belly slam, Kaisa going in on you, and then you kill Kaisa, and then you win the fight. That's the appeal of Xayah. That's how E-Star won some of their games earlier on, was with Rat, because Rat's an obnoxious player, and that's like his entire repertoire is being obnoxious. So like you have to like see how these play out in like a comp, and like Sivir can kind of fill the same role and press ult for Olaf. That's like the other big benefit of Sivir is like you press R for Olaf or Graves so they can run at them faster, or Udyr, because like, you know, all they can do is run at them. They don't supply CC. All they can do is run at the enemy team. So like with Jinx, like you are the one who wants to run at them. So like what are you doing with your other picks so that you can run at them and put them in a situation so you can trigger the passive? I think that's the bigger issue. Part of why teams I think are falling back to Aphelios above Jarvan's great. A part of why I think teams are falling back to Aphelios over Jinx is that they can set up an Aphelios comp by just picking Thresh. Like, you know, when they're in pick ban, when you're in lockdown and you're thinking through 500 things about what's your early clear look like, which OP jungler do you pick, because that's the thing that matters most in this meta, and then like how am I going to approach this game? You think about like what ADC can I pair with my comp or with a champion the best to get success. With Aphelios, all you need is Thresh. That's it. You just pick Thresh to bail out, or Tahm Kench to bail out your Aphelios, and you win the game. It's like the mindset. And so that to me is a part of why Aphelios' higher presence is because they're like, Aphelios Thresh is really good. That's all the thought that goes into it at that point, because there's so many other things that you care about going into these games that you have to get down, that like that's just where it ends up being in like the limited time frame that is pick ban. Maybe if this was like chess where you have like a day to figure out your pick ban phase, like it would be different. But that I don't see that changing just based off of like buffs. It's got to be something more foundational changing with the meta and like how people play around jungle or top lane that shifts like which picks could be viable there. Or you have like a Tristana one trick that also could do it. But you know, it's like it's got to be something different.
Speaking of the solo lanes, we're going to do them in one go. Top 4 mid laners by presence: Orianna, Twisted Fate, Syndra, and Zoe. Top 5 top laners by presence: Renekton, Gnar, Camille, Gragas, Ornn.
Like team comp. Like if you have a plan, you have to build around it, you have to draft around it, and you need to have your pivots, and you have to have available tools that can't easily be sniffed out. Like top lane right now has just been an answer, or you're opting into something. Like if you're going to do, it wasn't mentioned, but like the Ivern Lulu, like you're opting into a play pattern to work with your jungler, which is the Graves. If you're playing the Udyr, like it's like those, the mid and top pools that you described are components that work with the jungle picks. Until those jungle picks change, those won't really change. Like lots of pick potential, lots of 1v1 and survive your lane so your jungler can come up and help you out. Like it's not going to change.
The only thing to me is that like I'm curious to see how many more answers evolve, because the biggest thing with top lane is that teams keep thinking or remembering more and more answers to Renekton or to Gnar or to whatever as the season goes on. Like it's like they go into these games and you know, temporary amnesia, they forget about what to play in this matchup or what actually works in this matchup that also works in their comp because they hadn't thought of it for some reason. And so you'll see this more and more where like people will pick up the Gangplank into Renekton, or they'll pick up the Gnar or the Irelia into Gnar, or they'll play
Still.
the Volibear for some reason has zero presence, and Volibear was the big answer to Renekton last meta. So it's and like the item changes are a thing, but it shouldn't be that much of a difference between the two. So I expect that to continue to be like the lane that evolves the most is, as teams will remember that there's other champions they can play in this lane that can win it, that then answer the champions that are being played in the meta and fit into comps. Because that's the crucial thing, is it's like I need to not just know that Jace wins this lane. I need to remember that Jace wins this lane and I play it with Syndra Nidalee, and we hard stomp. That's like the thing that they need to remember. And as soon as they like get to that mental place where they figured out that, yes, I can pick Jace here. I'm not an NA. It's like that's when we'll see it really like start flourishing, and maybe this meta will shift a bit because like you'll see the lanes matter more.
You talk about answers. What odds would you need to bet $5 on Huni picking Yasuo into Gnar this weekend?
Ooh, that's interesting because it's like, all right.
Who are they playing
A
against?
classic counter pick.
I'm thinking about it. So they're playing FlyQuest, I think we said, and somebody else.
They don't. He's on Dig, right?
Yeah.
Who?
No, so much.
Huni's on TSM, and they're
Oh right, yeah. So they have FlyQuest.
Is Bjergsen really gonna let
FlyQuest,
Huni do
C9,
that stuff?
and
Is he
CLG.
really?
okay.
Alright.
Yes. So like, don't trust Bjergsen pick ban. That's the one thing that has been consistent with last year TSM, is you do not trust Bjergsen pick ban. He will throw everything in pick ban in order to get mid lane a reasonable matchup. That is the entire point. And like, it's still true. It will continue to be true. Don't trust it. So like, I would not be surprised if like TSM locks like Orianna, Yasuo nonsense. Like the thing to me with Huni is it's like, is he going to pick Yasuo into Gnar? Or is he going to play top Cassiopeia into Gnar? Or is he going to play Lucian into Gnar? All of which are favorable matchups. Like I would bet good money he picks some nonsense champ top lane that's like low percentage in the meta. I would not necessarily bet money on specifically Yasuo.
That's fair. It like you look around a little bit at the meta. Gragas is here. Alistair's the top picked support. Orianna's in the top mid laners. You can build yourself a spicy Yasuo comp if you try a little bit.
Like one of the things with Yasuo though, like especially in top lane, is it's like with so many good or S tier junglers, like there have been like 5 jungle bans in a lot of games. And so like if you're using all your bans on jungle, you're not banning Renekton, you're not banning Gnar, you're not banning whatever. So it's like, what are the odds that you actually are in a scenario where you're controlling pick ban enough in like the lanes to like force this, Because like you're gonna have to ban like Udyr, you're gonna have to ban Pantheon, you're gonna have to ban Talia. Like, what are you gonna do when they pick that, whatever champion? Like it's really hard to force teams into like advantageous pick bans when all the picks are going to jungle, like all of them, and that makes it very hard.
One champion that you want to see in a pro game this week, Eric, go.
Tristana again.
Steven, one champion. Eric?
Sorry, Nocturne, actually.
I think the AP shy.
Steven, one champion that you want to see in a pro game this week.
I think there's some possibility that is an
shy.
answer to like power farm into like mid game into late game spike. Like it's an AP option when Talia's getting gutted.
I want to see J4. Mid or jungle.
Or top lane.
It's been a while since we've seen some delicious mid assassin J4.
Keen's gone, man. Like, he's a TFT pro. Like, he's
I miss it.
uncoverage now. Like, it's low odds.
Look, if you can survive the lane, you can one combo a Kaisa. Doesn't matter what she does.
I totally. You have seen my ARAM games, but
I have
like,
seen your ARAM games, Eric.
I get it, but like without Keen, I don't know who's gonna like. I mean, maybe Perks. Maybe Perks has the cojones for that, you know. But like, I don't know who else in NA would have the cojones to pull out mid Jarvan at this meta. Like, and for Perks to do it, he has to like finally give up on mid Yone, which I don't think is going to happen. I don't think it's going to happen. He's going to keep playing that shit. He doesn't believe in NA enough to pick a real champion in this meta. So,
can Fudge play Yasuo?
I think Fudge can feed.
I would I have rather have seen Yasuo than Aurelia in that game 5? Maybe,
but like remember that the Aurelia pick is what LS was saying on stream is what you should be doing in Gnar. So the real way you get Yasuo to show up top lane as a counter pick is you pay LS money by subscribing
you get a kickback for that.
Stop simping. You are an LS simp. Stop.
He's not gonna actually say it though. He'll say that Yasuo is bad and you should be playing these 3 other champions. Like, let's be honest, he's not gonna go for the Yasuo nonsense. It requires your opponent to be too bad.
Eric, what are you playing in solo queue right now?
Right now in solo queue, I've swapped to ADC because I'm sick of my bot lanes getting stomped and us losing hard. So I'm playing mainly Tristana because I have a lot of mastery points.
My bad. I've been your ADC a lot of times and fed a lot of times.
You've been top lane recently, and it's been okay. Yep. It's solo queue that's very tilting.
That's why I don't play solo queue. I've been talking to playing normals, and I am not quite a Fiora one trick yet. I'm working on the I'm working on my Fiora and Aurelia game.
You won us that game. That epic base race with our Nexus at 50 HP. Like, come on.
So I know if I'm going to give myself literally any credit about my personal League of Legends prowess, it's that I have a decent understanding sometimes of when to split push and when not to, and that has proved to be very fruitful when playing Fiora on the Rift. Because I get a lot of turrets. And sure, I die sometimes, but sometimes I backdoor their Nexus, which is what happened in the game we're talking about, in which we had a true base race, and our Nexus was down to, I think the final number was like 250, 300 HP. But I got into their base and killed their Lilia and their Nexus turrets and their Nexus before they could kill our Nexus, and it was a very satisfying game of League of Legends. Steven, what are you playing on the Rift?
I played Diego. He was fun. Man, like, he's really good. He feels good to pilot in the jungle, but in ganks and in team fights, it's hard. Because I want him to be untargetable during the possession. And it's short enough where I see why they did it that way, but it doesn't feel correct because it feels like you should be playing it like a Kled dismount or a Mordekaiser ult or like the things that feel similar. And so you're just like, herder, like, I'm gonna go inside you. They're like, nope, bye. Like, oh yeah, that doesn't make you untargetable, or I can't break turret aggro or anything. So it feels wrong that it doesn't do exactly what you think it should do. But he felt good in that, like, his clear is easy, so that's nice.
Yep. There's nothing more tilting than seeing 2 of your top laner on the mini map.
Eric, most of the new champions have been seen in pro play relatively quickly after their release. This will be what we'll wrap up. Do you think we see any Diego? I believe he's enabled in LEC for sure this weekend. I think it's been the 2-week gap after his release that he's available. Do you think we see any Diego this weekend?
It's tough. If we do, it'll be top lane. and or in a lane, I should say.
Yeah.
Like top or mid, but I'm guessing top because like he doesn't bring enough engage or pick from a jungle role for pro level, even though jungle is definitely where he's the most OP in solo queue. So like I'm expecting top if he shows up. He might not though, because like Yasuo and Yone, who are also OP in solo queue, he builds ADC items when he's not an ADC. So like it could just be that because he's an immortal shield bow abuser, he doesn't get the same play rate.
Yep, I think that's fair. All right, this has been a fun episode as always. We will be back in a week or two with some fresh thoughts and fresh takes for you as the LCS regular season gets going. The LEC keeps on going, and I believe the LCK and LPL are going to be on New Year break coming up shortly here, if I remember right. So it might be just some Western League of Legends the next time we talk about that without our thoughts on my beloved LPL and LCK.
Buy merch.
Eric, closing thoughts?
Get ready for Jose Dioto to pop off this week in fantasy.
Oh, right. We didn't talk about our fantasy league. Eric, who's your team?
I have Alfari in top lane, who was my first pick overall. Jose Dioto, Jizuke, Reyes, and then I got Huhi, right? No, a Vulcan. I have Vulcan in Cloud9. So so my roster was largely grounded on like players who I think have a disproportionate amount of game score for their teams, which is Alfari and Jose Dioto, who I think are like above and beyond what their lanes are going to be, who I had available to me at my spots in Big Band or in the draft. So I picked them, and then I picked Jizuke because when they win, it will be because Jizuke pops off, and so I want those points. And then I picked an ADC that was available to me because I picked my ADC super late. That was my plan going into this. Is like I assume ADCs will get stable game points scores, and I'd rather pick Reyes than Johnson, Wild, Turtle, or who's Golden? Oh, Stixay.
Six. Yep.
My fantasy
Ian,
strategy
what was
was
your
lay there and
fantasy
get picked
strategy, and
apart
who's
while
your
my
team?
boys were just pillaged from my dying arms. But basically it's like Core
I don't
JJ
have
and the
ATL
baby
players.
boys. I got Fudge, Closer, Palafox, and Johnson. So I was thinking like I think they are people with something to prove, so they're gonna pop off because they're gonna come up and grow up.
Are you Core JJ in NA residence?
Yeah.
Is that right?
This is our young, natural, organic
Respect.
talent. 100%. And Core JJ. Yeah. Yeah.
And Core JJ, who started in
Yeah.
NA, who started in NA. He's practically an NA resident. Dignitas,
Man.
respect it.
You claiming to be fostering young NA talent while I went out and picked Iconic in jungle. I don't want to hear it from you. So I have someday Iconic, Demonte Sven, Ignar, and Golden Guardians because I deprioritized my jungle pick and my team pick. But I am optimistic about Golden Guardians based on how they looked, and my priority going in was to get Sven. Because Sven tends to not die
and not in TL
and get
like
lots of kill participation in Cloud9 games. Pretty much
he's
regardless
probably gonna be
whether they win or lose.
He's probably going to be the point leader in the league. Like it's.
I picked it. I am
Taking
thankful that
Sven.
Steven did not pick him first because he's who I wanted. And then I wanted 100 Thieves solo lanes because 100 Thieves solo lanes I think have like the highest individual pop-off potential in the entire league. Like when Demonte goes off, he has some pretty insane games, and we've all seen what Sunday can do. On his day, he's the best top lane in the league. We're gonna check out, subscribe to the channel, rate, review, send us comments, send us what you want to hear us talk through, whether it's picks or games or whatever you have. We're still figuring out how we want to do this and kind of make it up as we go every week. So if you want to contribute your thoughts on what hilarious stuff we want to talk about, go for it. That's what we're here for. And with that, this has been Reaction Time.